Peace, y'all. This your girl Tiffany here, live in effect, and thank you guys for coming through here tonight. So tonight's topic, I want to talk about a brother who deserves his flowers. And what do I mean by deserving his flower? That means he deserves recognition. He deserves his respect because he doesn't get a lot of credit for the things that he has done and contribute within the black community. Now, there's people out there that talk about they started the STEM program and, or was one the first to bring STEM to the black community. But I would say this brother was one of the few people, and I had to sit back and think about it. He was one of the few that actually introduced STEM to the black community, but he did it in his own way to bring some form of interpretation. Okay. So the community can be able to get into or can be able to adapt into the concept of STEM. And the brother that I'm speaking of is African Creation Energy. Now, I had the pleasure to have this brother on the platform. Okay. So I'm going to play a couple of videos where I did the interview with him. All right. And then I'm going to show the books that he has written over the years. And the reason why I say I'm so inspired because this brother has he has 2 degrees in a minor in STEM, okay? He has a degree in engineering, a bachelor's degree in engineering, a master's degree in mathematics, and a minor in physics. So when I tell you this brother is very highly intelligent, he's so intelligent. So I'm going to play the video of where I did an interview with him a few years ago, okay? So let me go ahead and share this screen. All right, so I'm gonna play the video and I'm gonna put myself on mute. So I want you guys to hear it. It's gonna probably be about 15 minutes.
Support, watching the videos, buying the books, that means the world to me. The African Creation Energy series of books was like a project of mine that I felt was necessary for our people in terms of motivating us in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. A little bit of background about myself. I was raised in the Black conscious community. I was actually raised as a Muslim, and I went to a Muslim school here in Atlanta, Georgia, up until about grade 8 or not, yeah, 8 or 9, grade 9, and then I went to a public high school in DeKalb County. Graduated, went on to college. I got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. with a minor in physics. Went to grad school. Got a master's degree in math and statistics. I started off in a PhD program, but my graduate assistantship kind of showed me how influential statistics was in research and the different work that sciences do. So I was really trying to get a better understanding of statistics, and I ended up getting a master's degree in statistics. And it was I went back to try to start off or complete that PhD program that I initially enrolled into. Uh, but it was around that time where I kind of got motivated to write the books on writing. So in 2008, I made my first trip to Africa. I've been in like 8 different African countries, and been motivated, just based on my background, being raised in the Black conscious community.
Now listen, this brother explains why. He explains what motivated him to start writing books. Okay? He explains his degrees and his background. The brother say he went to Africa. And then he also said he was raised in the conscious community. But he mentioned that he had 3 degrees, and that's one of them is a minor in physics, one is a bachelor in engineering, and again, a master in mathematics. And he was raised as a Muslim as well. But I'm going to go ahead and continue to play the video.
Seeing how the conditions of our people globally, and just wanting better for us. I was like, let me see if I can, write a series of books dedicated to African science, technology, engineering, and math, dedicated to motivating Black African people of African descent in the STEM field. And so, I wrote those series of books. At first, it was just supposed to be one book, and then it kind of sprawled into 3 books. The first 3 books, which was Science of Sciences and Science and Sciences, the next being Supreme Mathematic, African Math Magic, and then the third one, which was Technology. And then I just kept writing. So now I'm on 8 books now, with my plan to put out my 9th and final book of the series later this year. And that'll really be like a compilation of all the books that I've written so far, as well as like the different lectures I've done over the years. Just all in one single package. Make any revisions I need to make, and hopefully that'll be well received. But and I hope I'm not too long-winded. I'm not a talkative person, believe it or not.
Oh no, you good, you good. Yeah, you good. So you have a degree in electrical engineering, correct? And you said a minor in physics?
Yes. Yeah, so my bachelor's degree was electrical engineering. I had a minor in physics. I went to Georgia Southern University. I don't know if you're familiar with Georgia
Southern.
I'm
familiar with that. I'm familiar with Georgia Southern.
Yeah, I graduated from Georgia Southern, and then I went to grad school at Georgia State, and I got a master's degree in math and statistics at Georgia State. I started the physics PhD program at Georgia State, but I didn't finish.
Okay, wow. So you got a background. So you basically were born and raised in Atlanta.
Yeah. Born and raised in Atlanta, DeKalb County, East Side.
Okay, East Side. Okay, East Side.
Yeah.
Okay, East Side. Yeah, I was raised on the East Side myself. Yeah, so
okay. Where'd you go to high school at?
I didn't go to high school on the East Side, but I went to high school elsewhere. I went to high school in on the South Side. I went to Mount Zion, and then I had went out of state. So
okay.
Yeah, but okay. So you from the East Side? That's what's up. Now, yeah, okay. Interesting. That's very interesting. Wow, you a Southern boy, Georgia boy. All right now. Now, in the Black conscious community, I noticed you said you was Muslim, correct?
Yeah, so I was raised a Muslim. I wouldn't call myself a Muslim now anymore. I probably would have considered myself a Muslim probably up until around 2006, 2007. Around that time. So Yeah, I mean, how far do you want me to go into it?
I mean,
I can
so
go.
like, okay, because the reason why I was asking, I know you was a Muslim, but I also remember you saying in the video that you was part of the Nuwapian Nation at one point. Am I correct?
Yeah. So okay. So I can let me give that background. So
Okay.
um, yeah, I was raised as a Muslim. Even while I was going to college, I still considered myself a Muslim. My dad was heavily involved in the Nuwabian organization. You know, he was a member of the AEO. He was a member. AEO is an ancient Egyptian order. He was a member of the Nuwabian Masonic Lodge and the Nuwabian Shrine Temple. And I used to always talk. So my dad would like bring the books home, and so I would read the books that my dad brought home. And I would always like ask my dad, I was like, when I get out of college, I want to get involved with the Nuwabians or whatever. And he was like, no, I want you to focus on your education. I want you to focus on your education. So I never got involved like while it was still active. And then my dad passed in 2005. I think around that same time, the land that they had, the Nuwabian land, kind of got raided and shut down and all that. And I remember like how supportive uh his brothers, his Nuwabian brothers were to our family in his passing. You know what I'm saying? And that really, even though my dad was always like, don't get involved, don't get involved, that like motivated me. Like I had been reading the books, but I wanted to know more. So I was like, okay, I really want to know about this because I see, how these brothers are pulling together to help our family in our time of need. So I want to know more. But probably from about 2006, 2007, I started reading the books heavy. And at this point in time, like there's no like Tamaray land. So like people are still teaching like remote classes in different parts of Atlanta. So and they had like a main headquarters in Athens. So again, I'm in Decatur, so I would drive from Decatur to Athens on Friday, and then on Saturday they used to have all eyes on Egypt bookstore on Auburn, and I used to go to that one on Saturday to the Saturday classes. And on Sunday, there was this brother called Noble Evans, or they called him Bunny, or Bun. And I would go to Bun's classes on Sunday, and that was like my weekend for like a year and a half. And then I met another Nuwabian brother who was teaching classes on the east side in Decatur, a brother by the name of Sakim. And since that was closer, I just kind of I stayed there. I stayed going to his classes, but also like I would go to the different classes and I would ask the same question in different classes. And the brother Sakim, his answers seemed to be the most pragmatic to me. So I was like, okay, I'll just hear. And he was the one who actually led me. I shouldn't say led me, but he organized the first trip that I took to Africa in 2008. You know what I'm saying? But
Okay.
yeah, that's basically how it all like played out. I don't know if I can call myself a member, but I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who were part of that organization.
Yeah.
Good people, good people. I won't never try to talk bad about the people. Unfortunately, the leader, he had some shortcomings that he succumbed to, but the people that built that nation are good people in my assessment, for the most.
Right. Right. Yeah. See, and I know playing Nuwapian brothers and sisters because like, when I got into the journey of learning about the consciousness and whatnot, it's one of the first people I encountered with. I have they used to be downtown in Five Points area.
Right.
And one of the brothers that I know who was an elder, now he's an ancestor. He always made sure that, I was getting information, getting different type of books, not just books that was pertaining to Nuwapi and stuff, but books that was like pertaining to other authors like Dr. Ben and, Dr. Clark and all of that. So, yeah, so I know how they is. So yeah, I know you've been through quite a journey. You have. So now let's go ahead and let's get started on your books. The reason why I brought you here today because I like how you have your book formatted, like how you get into the details about science. Because what you do is, I know you use a lot of what's it called, anthropomorphism, and also the personification in your books. And on top of that, like you when you talk about the origin, you go into like the ancient origin of science and get into the modern context of science. Now, let's talk about this book right here, The Ptah Technology, Engineering Application of African Sciences. This book. Yeah, like I was telling somebody, I know you've seen one of the videos that I did with a brother, responding to, you know, the accusation that he made, the claims that he made about your book. And I in the book, in the beginning, I highlighted some information and I said, okay, like this one right here, the first one, it says African creation gods of technology, right? And it says mathematical objects are mental ideas, concepts, symbols, and or abstraction that are used to model, represent, symbolize, and provide a way for the human mind to comprehend and explain various observed phenomena and aspects of reality in the natural world. And you also put, just like mathematical objects, there is no overwhelming concrete proof or evidence that God exists in the real world as described by the various stories associated with the respective God concepts. However, just like mathematical objects, examples can be found in reality in the natural world that corresponds to the various definition, description, metaphorical and or symbolic aspects associated with God and God concept. So when I read that part, I understood that you was speaking from a state of quantum physics. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that right there, that lets me know that you was using quantum physics in this book. Can you explain like why you use a lot of personification in your book, as far as like comparing it to like deities and all of that stuff for the listening audience?
Sure. Okay. Let me start here, right? So let's talk. I'm gonna be as brief and succinct as possible. So, like when we talk about science, what is science? Science is the systematic study of the natural world based on observation and experience, right? Engineering is the practical application of scientific information, and technology is the product of science and engineering, right? The need for people to systematically acquire knowledge about the natural world has always been a human need, right? Since the very beginning. Knowledge, information is the most vital resource that anybody can have. And the ability to harness that vital resource is systematically acquiring the knowledge. All right. When we talk about the methods in which people acquire that knowledge, right? In today's, today we call it the scientific method, right? The observation, hypothesis, theories, and conclusions, right? The experimentations and conclusions, that the steps of the scientific method. Those same steps, early man performed even before.
Sorry, brother, can't you go back and repeat what you were saying, because the service kind of act up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like hot spotting off my phone, so that might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
But my point is that systematically acquiring knowledge is a need that human beings have always had since the beginning, even before the formulation of what we now know as modern science. When we study ethnoscience, when we study what they call traditional indigenous knowledge or traditional indigenous science versus Western science, the method by which traditional indigenous people encoded the abstractions to explain the natural world was through allegory, was through personification, was through anthropomorphism. The method that we do it today in modern science is through mathematics. And so again, I'm writing books to motivate the Black conscious community in the STEM fields. I know my community. I was raised in my community. There's no better way to motivate Black African people in the STEM fields than to use an approach, to use a method that was similar to the way our ancestors did it, right? And so that's really like the motivating reason why I use symbols, why I use anthropomorphism, why I relate the different scientific concepts to various mythologies in the book. In order to, it's used as a pedagogical modality to teach things. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to see how fast a child will run, send them to where they want to go. And that's just basically say people are motivated to do things that they really want to do. And so if you present information in a way that is palatable to a person, they'll be more receptive to it. So that's basically the idea behind why I use the different mythologies and allegories and so.
So that was my first interview that I did with the brother. And as you can see, the way he broke it down, right? He said, the reason why I do it like this because I know my community. And I want to be able to give the knowledge to the community. See, that's somebody that truly cares about his community, that truly cares about getting the message to the people, getting the knowledge to the people. If you go to his channel, right, which I recommend you guys to check out, the African Creation Energy channel, it's nothing but scientific information. However, he's using African concept to explain modern science. Okay? Now, some people may argue that he sounds pseudo and all of that. Well, no. He just have his own interpretation. He used personification. Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up, my girl? What's up? Shout out to Honey Clark. What's up, sister? Yeah, check him out. It's African Creation Energy channel. Check him out. When I tell you he does a great job, he does a thorough job. You know what I'm saying? It was an honor and pleasure to have him on here. That was my first interview that I did with this brother. Okay? That was my first interview. Now, I don't know any other channel he has been on as far as like interview wise, but that was my first time interviewing him. And he really wanted to. I'm not even going to bring it up, but he wanted to speak to a specific individual who made a commentary about his books. That's who he really wanted to talk to, but that person was not available at that time. But the point is, when you got somebody who's putting dedication and work into the community, that goes to show that they truly value their own people. As a matter of fact, I want to show you the books that he has written. All right, so Ptah Technology, okay, which goes into the engineering application of African sciences. So Ptah is a deity, an Egyptian deity that represents lightning, electricity. Okay. So let's see. Let's go into one of the details that he talks about in his book. All right. So the way that he explains Ptah, he said one of the earliest, if not the first African creation god of technology was the deity Ptah. Ptah was considered the grand architect of the universe, divine craftsman, and the primary creator that was responsible for creating himself, the universe, the heavens, and the earth, as well as the other deities, and thus was given the title the Ancient One. Ptah was considered the god of craftsmen, blacksmith, artists, artisan, stonecutters, architects, builders, sculptors, masons, and engineers. Ptah was depicted as a bearded man wearing a skull cap or kufi, representing protection of the mind, and his body was shrouded so that only his hands are free, representing taking action on his thoughts of his mind. In the coffin text and spell 11:30, Ptah said, I am the master of creative fire who lives on truth. Ptah is depicted shrouded to show that this creative fire, desire, passion, and energy must be tempered and controlled with reason. His hands were shown holding a scripture that was a combination of Jed, Pillar, Ankh, and Was, which represented the tools that aided Ptah to design and create his creation and invention. In the city of Memphis, Ptah was part of the triad, including his wife, Sekhmet, and his son, Nefertun, in the Memphite theology named for Egyptian city of Memphis, or Mennefer, which was dates back to 4000 BC and was carved on the Shabaka stone during the Nubian 25th dynasty of Egypt. The African deity Ptah was described as the opener who, through creative utterance, called the universe into existence after having imagined creating in his heart and speaking it with his tongue. By definition of function, the role of the African deity Ptah in African philosophy is equivalent to the logos, creative utterance or logic, the tongue, and the nous, intention of the mind or reason, which the Egyptian believe exists in the heart. In Greek philosophy, the depiction of African deity Ptah showed him standing on a four-sided platform foundation which represent Ma'at, truth and order. The name Ptah has been translated as meaning creator and also has been translated as meaning the opener or sculptor. All right. So this is this book right here. So what you have, he used African philosophy, right? African spirituality to describe scientific knowledge, modern science. So he used Ptah as a representation of engineering. Okay, so Ptah was a deity that represent engineer. Okay, that's what Ptah was. A deity that represent engineering. Now, I don't want to hear no mess about, well, that's pseudo because you can't use deities or personification to represent science. Well, you might want to go back and study about the Roman and Greeks. Wait a minute, if you really study modern science, like the names, the titles that are used go back to the Romans and Greek gods, deities. I'll give you a good example. The days of the weeks go back to the Greek and Roman gods. The months of the year, the 12 months of the year, go back to the Roman and Greek gods. The planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, you name a few, Neptunes, they go back to the Roman and Greek gods. That's what they were named after. And guess what? I got a book that can go into that. I'll be back. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's a book right here. It's called the classic bestseller Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes by Edith Hamilton. So this books go into Roman gods and Greek gods. And some of the gods are going to be familiar because their names are used in modern science. Okay? When we look at the medical symbol, right? The medical symbol, the caduceus, where does it come from? That's Roman and Greek philosophy. Roman Greek mythology. The caduceus symbol goes back to the Roman Greeks. Okay? The snake represents healing. The snake represents healing. Hold on. All right, you guys. Um, so my screen done went out. Let me try to get back in. All right. Okay, so my screen just went out on me, but anyways, I hope you guys can still hear me. But yes, besides the technical difficulty, as I was saying, if you go back and study about the different symbols that are used in STEM, such as the Caduceus symbol, it goes back. It goes back to the Roman and Greek gods. Okay, so it represents medicine. Represents medicine. All right, then, cool, cool. I'm glad you able to see my bubbles. I wish I could show my face on here, but I don't know why it's doing that. You know how it is sometimes with technology, your screen goes out. All right. So let me look up the Caduceus symbol. Damn, my. All right, so check this out. So the Caduceus symbol, right? It says a rod, staff, or wand generally surmounted with wings. Two serpents intertwined about the staff, forming a figure of eight shape. The key elements of the construction of this ancient sign are the serpent, the spiral, the infinity sign, the circle, wings, and the wand. The caduceus is an extremely ancient symbol, and its earliest recorded appearance is on the goblet of the king of Lagash, dating back some 2,600 years BC. The caduceus is the emblem of Mercury and Hermes and is incredibly rich in meanings. First, the staff or wand is a symbol of power and authority of magical and supernatural forces, and is the tool of all magicians, medicine men, and shamans. It also represents the tree of life or world axis. Then there are the wings on the top of the wand. Wings signify flight, both physical and metaphorical institution, the spiritual, and communication from the heavens or the gods. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. The two serpents twinning in opposite direction represent opposition and equilibrium. They also signify opposites, male and female, day and night, good and bad, and so represent balance. Serpents also remind us of hidden knowledge. Okay? As the serpents swirl around the wand, they form the figure of eight shape or infinity symbol, which stands for completeness and perfections. Part of the infinity symbol is the circle, ultimately representing the cosmos, the spirit, and unity. All these elements combined make for a powerful symbol that has altered very little over the millennia. Together, they add up to supernatural power and hidden wisdom, messages from the spiritual realms, authority, the cosmos, and infinity, and the pairing of opposites in harmony and unity. Perhaps the most common use of the caduceus both today and since its earliest appearance is as a symbol of healing and medicine. Is it how can I don't know how to say this word? Asclepius. Asclepius, the first physician and the god of medicine, had the caduceus as one of his attributes because he had the power and the institution, the wand, and the wings to be able to use potentially poisonous or corruptive substance, the serpent, to restore health and reputedly to bring the dead back to life. The caduceus was not only the instrument of Asclepius, or however you say his name, but of the healing god in Gizada of Mesopotamia, whose symbol is intertwining snakes, and of the Egyptian Baal, Isis, and Ishtar. It also found in India, where it carries the same meaning. All right, so this coming from the Element Encyclopedia of Secret Signs and Symbols. All right. So the point that I'm making is, and also you can get the book, the classic bestseller Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes, Edith Hamilton. So the point that I'm making is the ancient symbols are used in modern science. Okay. So people who tend to call somebody pseudo is very biased or come from a biased mindset because they using African personification or anthropomorphism to describe scientific knowledge. All right. So the brother also have another book which is called the Spectroscope, the symbolism and significance of spectroscopy to science and survival. So spectroscopy is dealing with the relationship between light and matter. Okay. So this is the book that he has written as well. And then he has another one which is called The Science of Sciences and the Science in Sciences. Then he also got 9 to the 9th power of 9, Supreme Mathematics, African Magic. Then he has another one which is called 9 Ether Re-engineering. Okay. So this book, 9 Ether, deals with thermodynamic energy, right? The Supreme Mathematics, of course, deal with mathematics for the most part. And the Science of Science deals with like the teachings about natural philosophy, modern science, ancient science, and the spectroscope deals with the symbolism and deals with, again, talk about, electrons, protons, and light energy, things of that nature. And then again, Ptah Technology, which deals with the engineering application of African sciences. That's another book that he has written. So, as I said before, this brother deserves his flowers. Okay, because it don't get no better than that. Somebody who can actually take the time out and dedication within the conscious community to actually break down scientific knowledge to the people in a way that people can understand and be able to relate better and to adapt to scientific information. And it takes a lot of work to do so. It's not something that you do overnight. So here's another video, another interview that I did with him. Okay, I'm going to play this video. So let me go ahead and post this video up here. Okay. All right, so here's another video that I did with this brother. And I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute, and I'm going to play it. The Supreme Mathematic, African Ma'at Magic, and also Ptah Technology. Okay. I recommend y'all get his books for real. Like when I tell y'all need to get his books, y'all really need to get his book because he deals with science. But he deals with science from the concept of anthropomorphism. So anthropomorphism deals with understanding symbolism, right? That describes the natural phenomena. So yeah, so he used a lot of anthropomorphism personification in his books, but he still deals with science. I'm telling you, these books are worth getting. I mean, you can get his books on Amazon. I think you can go on his website, but we'll find out when I get him on here. But yes, I got to bring my friend on. I had to bring him back on here because we're going to deal with the conversation about the intelligence of our ancestors, which really gets into the topic about science, because for some reason people believe that our ancestors didn't know anything about science prior to the Atlantic transatlantic slave trade, right? And hold on, let me see. Sister Julanda put, we finna talk about African fraternicals. Oh yeah, we're gonna incorporate that too. We gonna talk about that. We gonna talk about all of that, yeah. But our people still, think that our African ancestors knew anything about scientific knowledge. They didn't know anything about scientific education and all of that, right? Well, we here to dispel those mythology. Okay, we gotta dispel those myths because our people, they were very thorough in, science and mathematics and agriculture and all of that prior to the Atlantic slave trade. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my friend on, and he's gonna get it in. Okay. Shout out to my buddy right here, Professor Ace.
Hey, peace, sister. How you doing? Thank you for having me back on.
Yes, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, it's always good chopping it up and building with you.
Yes. So we gonna get into the discussion about the intelligence of our African ancestors and their botanical knowledge. Also, the skills they had as far as like science and mathematics is concerned prior to the transatlantic slave trade or whatnot. So I seen your videos where you was getting into the discussion about African knowledge, and you were talking about science, what they knew as far as like the type of skill sets they had way before the transatlantic slave trade. So let's get into like the scientific knowledge about our African ancestors, and how they was able to like how they understood science in the African culture.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and I put together some slides. I saw the sister, she put a question in about African fractals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talk about that in this slide deck too. So I think this will yeah, this will probably be perfect if I can just present the slides and you can jump
Okay.
in and stop me and ask questions
Okay.
at any point. Yeah, it's about 40 slides. It should probably take me probably probably like 45 minutes to go through all of them.
Okay.
But yeah, feel free to just like jump in and ask questions at any point. Um, what can I do to present my screen?
Okay. Let me see.
Do I just click present?
Yes. Yeah. Click present.
Okay, let's see. We currently, okay. Let me upload the file. Uh, upload the file. All right, it's uploading. Sorry, I probably should have did this earlier. That would have been smart. First time giving this a shot. So yeah.
Okay. Hey, it happens.
But the idea. So yeah, in the presentation, like the description you sent to me, you want to talk about the sciences that we knew prior to the transatlantic slave trade. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this presentation we're going to talk about agricultural science. We're going to talk about textile engineering, uh, and we're going to talk about civil engineering, basically the
Okay.
sciences behind food, clothing, and shelter. We're going to talk about how we made connections between those sciences to spirituality. And then we're going to talk about how we came over here through the transatlantic slave trade with those skills and the spirituality associated with those skills. All right. So yeah, let me just go on and go through. So yeah, I'm Professor Ace, African Creation Energy. My website is africancreationenergy.com. As Sister Tiffany was talking about earlier, the African Creation Energy series of books and videos are essentially a STEAM education initiative which leverages African art in the form of the various.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna put that right there. Do you see that? Do you see how he got it set up? Science, technology, engineering, African arts, and mathematics. Now, there's two different type of STEMs. Okay, we got the STEM, which is of course dealing with technology, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But then you got the STEAM, which is art, and art plays a vital role in STEM, right? Because without art, there will be no science, no technology, no engineering, no mathematics. All right, everything itself is consists of art. All right, and in philosophy, in a branch of philosophy, that's called aesthetics. Aesthetics deals with art, beauty, expression. So art is nothing more than a form of expression of creativities, someone's ideals, someone's emotions, etc. But art just basically deals with creativity. So with art, you have creativity in science, technology, which technically means arts and crafts, and engineering and mathematics, because you able to deal with different patterns when it comes to number. You come up with different equations, right? When you create equations, that's a form of art. But I just want to put that out there. But I just want you guys to see how he got it set up on his screen. And that's very creative of him. But let's continue.
African literary art, African visual arts, and African religious and spiritual art for the purpose of motivating, inspiring, and teaching STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math to Africans and the global African diaspora. So the first thing we want to touch on, right, we want to clearly define spirituality because that's a word that has a lot of different definitions and uses. But for the purpose of this presentation, we will derive the definition of spirituality from the following sources. So spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than self and something more to being human than just sensory experience. Modern uses of spirituality tend to refer to the deepest values and meanings by which people live. Spirituality may involve a quest for ultimate meaning, and
Spirituality also deals with the quality of being incorporeal or immaterial in nature. So based on those four definitions, we're saying that spirituality is one, a recognition of the incorporeal or immaterial. That means not matter. Spirituality is recognition that there is something greater than oneself. Spirituality is recognition that there is more to being human than sensory experience. And spirituality is the source from which people derive their meanings and values in life, right? So when we use the term African spirituality in this presentation, we're talking about any system that originated in Africa that facilitates the aforementioned objectives. There is nothing in the above definition that prohibits science from being a source of spirituality. However, there are other definitions and uses of the word spirituality that are outside of the domain of science. For example, references to the supernatural. So with science as African spirituality, we recognize that science does facilitate a recognition of the immaterial in the form of energy, photons, gluons, and massless particles. We recognize that science facilitates recognition that there is something greater than ourselves. In astrophysics, we recognize the Earth, the Sun, the universe, the galaxy is all greater than ourselves. Science facilitates recognition that there is more than just sensory experience. For example, the visible light spectrum we know is just one small part of the electromagnetic radiation. So there's more light, more electromagnetic radiation than we can detect with our senses. There's also an audible sound spectrum, right? And the whole purpose of creating scientific tools is because we know that our senses are limited. So scientists facilitates the recognition that there is more than just sensory experience. Science is an ongoing quest for knowledge or ultimate meaning, and science gives us the ability to create what people value in life. So based on the above points, science could be considered sacred. That is something that should be revered, venerated, and respected. And since science has its origin on the African continent in ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet, then science can be considered a form of African spirituality. And yeah, feel free to jump in and ask questions or stop me at any point. I'm going to go on to the next slide. So with science as African spirituality, the African spirituality that is science provided us with the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter that people value in life through the sciences of agricultural science, textile engineering, and civil engineering. So this presentation will show us how the sciences associated with these three basic needs have been closely intertwined with African spirituality from ancient Egypt to West Africa through the Ma'afa of the transatlantic slave trade and to the culture of the African Americans. So the first science that we want to talk about is agricultural science. So, go ahead, Sister Tiffany, if you got a question.
Oh no, you continue. You good.
Okay, sounds good. So the first science we want to talk about is agricultural science. So agriculture is the science or practice of farming, including cultivation of the soil for the growing of crops and the rearing of animals to provide food, wool, and other products. Agriculture encompasses crop and livestock production, aquaculture, fisheries, and forestry for food and non-food products. Agriculture was key in the development in the rise of permanent human settlements and civilizations. Those permanent human settlements also go into the latter point of this presentation, which is architecture and civil engineering. Agriculture began independently in different parts of the globe, but the earliest evidence of agriculture on the African continent occurs in the Nile Valley around 10,000 BC during the pre-dynastic period of ancient Egypt. Plantains, millet, and sorghum were cultivated in Africa by 3000 BC. Yams were cultivated in Africa by 2500 BC, and rice was independently domesticated in West Africa and cultivated by 1000 BC. We have to recognize that there are also other sciences that go into agricultural science. For example, being able to predict the weather, being able to predict the seasons, when to sow your crops, when to harvest your crops, which goes into astronomy. Also, botany and biology are the different sciences that go into agricultural science. In terms of agricultural science and spirituality, so in ancient Egypt, we know that Asar was a netter of agriculture and vegetation, and the crook and the flail are the tools that he holds on his chest. Those are farming tools. The crook was a sickle, and the flail was used for harvesting crops. Another ancient Egyptian netter associated with agricultural science is Nippur and Nipet, which were the Neteru of grain in ancient Egypt. And the consort of Nippur was Neteru, African deity named Tayet, who was the goddess of weaving, which goes into textile engineering, as we'll talk about later. In West Africa, Oko was the Orisha of farming and harvesting. And together with Ogun, they represent the Orishas of agriculture. And then here in the Americas, cousin Zaka is the lower of the harvest in the Haitian voodoo. And he evolved during the Haitian Revolution when free slaves were able to own land. So connecting the agricultural science to the various spiritual systems that we have has been a practice from ancient Egypt to West Africa on into African Americans here in the USA. So this is the video and the point that the Sister Tiffany was referencing, that enslaved Africans arrived in America with skills in STEM. 25% of the enslaved Africans in America were skilled workers. The skills included agriculture, botany, textile engineering, metallurgy, pottery making, weaving, basket making, barrel making, wood carving, carpentry, metalworking, thread making, fabric weaving, soap making, shoe making, leather tanning, bricklaying, masonry, building, and construction. A lot of these things we kind of take for granted. Like, most people don't realize, like, before you can have fabric to make clothes, you have to have thread. Like, so our African ancestors had the knowledge to take literal fibers to create the thread, to create the cloth, to make the fabric, to make the clothes. Like, you realize how many different steps are in that process. That's a deep skill to have that many of us have lost in this present day. I also have links on here to a slavery skills database, like a database that has the different skills that our enslaved ancestors had, as well as the original video that Sister Tiffany referenced. So agricultural science was so important that it has been the focus of some of our prominent HBCUs here in America, right? North Carolina A&T, the A&T stands for Agricultural and Technical State University. Prairie View A&M, the A&M stands for Agricultural and Mechanical University. Florida A&M, Alabama A&M. So this has been part of one of the essential sciences that we've carried with us and have always held important, because it's the key to life, food. So yeah, this is referencing Sister Tiffany's video, right? The medicinal practices of enslaved people. So knowledge of the curative power of plants was a way for Africans and African Americans to survive and take care for themselves and loved ones. Plant knowledge and ritual practice around health and healing was passed down through generations. So this was another skill, another science, another knowledge that we brought with us in our mind through the transatlantic slave trade. And I have a link there to Sister Tiffany's original video. And if you're not familiar, the practice called hoodoo is where we tied in that agricultural knowledge, that botany knowledge, to our spiritual practices, traditions, and beliefs through slavery in the United States, for the purpose of providing different healing remedies.
Hey, excuse me, brother. So before you continue, now, regarding to the concept about hoodoo, I know this kind of a little off topic, but have you seen where sometimes, like, if you go in people's backyard, they have a tree and they have bottles in it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you kind of like expound on that just a little bit. Like, what's the significant meaning behind the bottles on the tree?
Yeah, I don't know too much about like the details of hoodoo practice. Like, so, I mean, my family is from down south, in Alabama. So like, there are different practices that I know a lot of Southern people still have. I don't know what the bottles specifically reference, but I don't know if you've ever heard of like gree-grees. That's like little, sometimes they call them medicine bags. I remember my grandmama and my great grandmama used to have those sitting around, with so it'd be like different herbs in there, and then they would have like little, like, I don't want to call them, so they were Christian, but they would have like little pieces of paper written in Arabic, right? So it looked like little Quranic verses in there with the herbs. But that was all part of that hoodoo tradition that they grew up with. So yeah, I don't know too much about the bottles in the tree though. If somebody knows something about that, I want to hear about it.
Yeah, because I always been curious. I always wonder because like I'll see it, but I just never understood what the meaning was.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just say I want to Google that now and see. I'm gonna make a note to myself, try to find out what that it represents.
Okay. Okay, then. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of agriculture, so it was also essential when we were escaping slavery, right? So the practice of hiding seeds in the hair was mentioned in the book Black Rice, The African Origins of Rice Cultivation in the Americas by Judith Carney. It says that Maroon history claims that their ancestors introduced the rice crop from Africa, and that Africa originally came, that rice originally came from Africa, brought by female slaves who smuggled the seeds of grain in their hair during on the slave ships, right? So this was something that they were wise enough, when they were being kidnapped in Africa, they said, let me grab these seeds and, put them in my braids so that I could, wherever I'm going, I'll be able to grow some food where I'm going. So, that was actually a genius move. And they actually introduced the rice crop here in America. Moving on to the next science. So textile engineering, right? Textile engineering is how we get our clothes. It is the application of material sciences to convert fiber into yarn and yarn into fabric. Cotton remains the most widely used and common natural fiber, making up 90% of all natural fibers used in the textile industry. So we know that our African enslaved ancestors here in America were picking cotton, but we were also producing the textiles made from the cotton. See, they want to make you think that you was just out in the field picking cotton all day. But after all of those bales of cotton were picked, then the sisters were turning those cotton into yarn and fabric, and so it was a production. It was a production, and it was a science. So the oldest example of a sewing needle is 60,000 years old, found in South Africa. Textile history is almost as old as human civilization. Evidence exists for production of linen cloth in ancient Egypt in the Neolithic period, started around, I can't see that, 5500 BC. In West Africa, so we're familiar with kente cloth. Kente cloth refers to the Ghanaian textile made of hand-woven cloth made from strips of silk and cotton. The word kente comes from the word kenten, which means basket in the Asante dialect of the Akan language, referencing its basket-like pattern. In Ghana, the Akan ethnic group also refers to kente cloth as woven cloth. Ashanti folklore includes a story where weavers invented kente cloth by seeking to replicate the patterns of Anansi the spider. So this is going to tie into the connection between textile engineering to African spirituality. West African cultures have been weaving textiles for thousands of years. Production of kente cloth dates back to the 17th century, and the Ewe weaving goes back to the 16th century in West Africa.
So you guys, basically he explains that our ancestors always had the scientific knowledge. Why do you think one of the main reasons why they were brought here to this place called America? Why do you think they was here? The main reason why they was brought here is because of their agricultural skills, right? And their textile skills. So their ability to use what we call STEM today to help build this country up. And I want to talk about the part where he touches on about the kente cloth. Go back a little bit. Okay. So he touches on about the kente cloth. Now, the kente cloth really has a lot of meaning. Basically, it's a way to pay homage to those who have passed on, to those who have made their transition to be with the ancestors. Now, in Alabama, right, they have something that is very common to that. In Alabama, they got something that's very common. Okay. So what they do is out there, they create their own cloth. However, they put the face, like the pictures of those who passed on, or like they'll get like some type of a piece of cloth from a shirt or anything that is a form of a memory. They do that, right? And then they pass it on down to the next generation. And what they'll do is they add on to the cloth. Okay. And then they add on, and then the next person adds on to the cloth, etc. All right. So a lot of this stuff that our ancestors, or the things that our ancestors have done, they have brought it here to America just for us as a people to have something that we can fall back upon. So again, Black people always been into science. Black people has always been into science. They have always gotten involved in studying STEM, or what we call STEM. So I recommend some books by Robin Walker that expounds more on this. So Robin Walker's book is called Blacks in Science in Volume 1. The first one deals with ancient Egyptian contribution to science and technology and the mysterious sciences of the Great Pyramid. That's the first book by Robin Walker. Okay. And I wish I could have had my screen up here so I could show you guys. And the second one is Blacks in Science, Volume 2, West and East African Contribution to Science and Technology and Intellectual Life and Legacy of Timbuktu. Then you got Blacks in Science, Volume 3, African American Contribution to Science and Technology, right? So, again, our people have made a contribution in society when it came to scientific knowledge. But to get back on Discord, this brother here, African Creation Energy, has really made a lot of contribution just by doing his videos alone on YouTube, speaking about the importance of STEM in the Black community, bringing that foundation of knowledge of STEM within the Black community. Encouraging people to go to college just so they can major in this field, right? Whatever type of field study they want to do. He became that prime example. He became the leader. He set a foundation for the people. And that's why he deserves his flowers. This is why this man deserves the respect. The underdogs are the ones that has the most information. I'm going to say it, the underdogs are the ones that have the most information. See, people like him are not going to be making it to the mainstream, or they're not going to gain a lot of popularity compared to others. And you know what? It's a good thing that he's not trying to be very mainstream, because he doesn't want to draw a lot of attention on himself. And I think that in his case, he wants people to be able to pass down the information to others. So he would rather let others give him the praise for the work that he's doing instead of being the one that has to brag and boast about the stuff that he's doing, because his work going to speak for itself. His work and his action speaks for itself. And that's what I like about this brother here. So his work shows his dedication to our community. And I want to be the one to show that. So if you guys get a chance to, go check out his channel, subscribe to his channel. Now, he has not been on there in a while doing videos, but it's a lot of gems. When I tell you it's a lot of gems, it's a lot of gems that you're going to find on his channel. So check out the brother, support him. You are welcome. You are so welcome. And thank you for coming through. So again, shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for coming through. Thank you guys for showing love. And I will keep you guys posted until next time. So check out all the previous videos that I've done for the past few days, in the past few weeks. Check out the videos and support the channel. If you like what you hear, if you like the content, go ahead and support it. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Share the channel if you got to. But I will keep you guys posted. And I just felt that it was necessary and it was needed to get this information out, to just show appreciation to people who actually doing what is necessary for the community. And this is how you give back to the community. This is how you give back to the community. So peace to this brother, and peace be to you guys. And I know the ancestors are very proud of him. I know the ancestor would be very proud of what he's doing. All right. So let me go ahead and log off of here, but I will keep in touch with you all, and I will keep you guys posted on the next video. So peace. Thank you.